This ethereal light that we left will not burn out. Wild to where we run. In the time that we had, it was worth it to know that this is not the end. It's just a part of the puzzle. The piece found its way to. This is not the end. It's just a split in the pathway of fate. Take a new trail. Catch your breath and pour your life line. Nowhere left to fall. Find your new way, just in time. Nowhere left to fall. Anticipating the fear that you thought you'd abandon, questioning ourselves. But the journey we take wasn't meant to be easy. This is not the end. This is not the end. We're running in circles again, the end of a trend. The world descends until we're nothing but the children of hell. The angels are fallen. It's time to take back the throne.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's coverage of the WINSTEL Gen 4 Challenge, where drivers are ready to see if they have luck on their side. Whether that's at the card table, whether that's at the slot machine, or whether it's at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, this is the 2006 running of the UAW Daimler Chrysler 400 here on FDFGG. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth for tonight's action is Blake McCandless with our producer Zach Johnson, as we look to see which drivers have luck heading their direction and which drivers will end up not coming away with the jackpot. It's been an intriguing race start for these drivers on the campaign. Daytona was wild. Auto Club / California was wild. Las Vegas could be the same, Blake.
It very well could be, Justin. We've seen a lot of great racing action so far this season. We were treated to kind of our first race that wasn't on a super speedway last week at Auto Club. It did not disappoint. And again, I think we're set for another big one tonight. We saw how much short runs mattered. Again, short races, short runs, only 50 laps to try and get it done. So these guys have a lot of work ahead of them and not a whole lot of time to get it done in.
First things first, as these drivers start their drivers meeting currently, let's talk about how things have gone so far this season on the schedule, because compared to real life, very different results, I will say, Blake, have come in the direction for these respective drivers. And in turn, these respective drivers have had a lot of back and forth in regards to where they've been finishing, how well they've been able to finish at said tracks, and how they are performing so far. Nicholas Doucette, in fact, the points leader still by 10 points after he was a contender at California, with Sean Butler, Brandon McKissick, Dylan Roberts, Christian Budd, your top 5 at the moment.
And remember, again, of course, we're still using the older point system. Obviously, after 2 races, Doucette with 345. So that's another thing that I think a lot of drivers that you see up there at the top of the list, they're the ones that have been able to grab a lot of those bonus points that are still left on the table under this points format. Guys leading laps, leading the most laps. And then obviously, every position is not the same as it is currently. You have less separation as you work further down the field, so that greater rewards drivers that are at the front and gives them more points to try and build their leads as we take a look 21st on down.
Some of the drivers really struggling. Carl Edwards' inspired machine of Philip Snipes is 25th, with Kyle Petty tied with him in points. 181 back. Alex Kolnick's that car being driven by him. You also have some drivers that perform really well in the real world this campaign, or showed flashes of speed down here. Greg Biffle was very dominant at Las Vegas at the time in 2006. Greg Biffle in this universe, not so much so far in regards to attrition. Drivers are in the midst of the final moments of practice here, and it's worth noting it's very hot today because, well, it's Nevada, it's Las Vegas, there's a desert, and, well, it's 144 degrees, the track temperature for today, meaning the track times are in the 31-second bracket, Blake. Compared to if it was, say, a 100-degree track, you'd maybe be in the 30s, if not the 29s here.
And you can see sliding off the corners that number 5 machine and having to correct it and try to get it going back. He's not going to be able to save it. Of course, destroyed a couple of cars, but again, this is under practice, so no harm, no foul. But certainly so, this is going to be temperatures the like of which many of these drivers have never really seen. I mean, you don't often see anything outside of the iRacing default weather, and even if that's the case, it's very rare that you see temperatures this high, so drivers going to be tested very much so, because the track temperature is so high. Tires are going to build up heat very quickly, and it's going to be awfully slick out there. We see a lot of crashing under practice. I'm sure that'll clean up a little bit as we get ready for qualifying, but nevertheless, just insanely challenging conditions here. I don't think personally I've ever seen 144 track degrees in iRacing, so it'll be interesting to see how this tire and how these drivers react to that.
Qualifying's underway, just 1 lap up on the board, solo qualified for competitors, and we're about to see how everyone's approaches are for this qualifying session. The fastest driver in practice, Jose Solis Jr., who is driving the Denny Hamlin machine. Gabriel Mauricio second on that board, driving the Jeff Burton machine. Then it's Nicholas Doucette, Brandon McKissick, and then Sean Pellick rounding out the top 5 in the session. The thing is, qualifying is an art form, and if you don't know how to use the paintbrush, you end up starting in 43rd.
And again, not a lot of time if you start all the way back in the field to try to make it back to the front if you're starting all the way back in the 43rd position. As we take a look here at the Office Depot Ford, the Carl Edwards machine driven by Philip Snipes. We'll see how these laps click off and whether these drivers kind of want to go after it on lap 1 or try to run the high side in 3 and 4 to try to get a good run for lap number 2. You see Snipes down there at the bottom to put his first time on the board, so at least he's going to try to go for 1 lap. You see even cutting the tri-oval, so he'll be the first time on the board, but he left a lot out there right now, about 4/10 off the provisional pole.
Massively different in terms of comfortability and pace, it looks like there. Solis Jr., as expected, top of the board for now. Colonix in the Kyle Petty-inspired machine just about a couple 100s back. Marcus Lindsay has jumped up top 4. Larry Pace, he's been driving the wheels off the 50 machine. The Larry Foy drived car in real life has been quick from the get-go this season. As there's that 11, he's taken the time to just continue warming up here. Amongst the drivers yet to set times, Justin Rowden, Casey Carrington, Nick Trebach, in the 43 this week, Ali Osman in his 25, Aaron Smith II, keep an eye amongst those driving on the track and trying to set times, including this, number 7 on track, Ryan Doucette, taking time to practice.
Well, I'm even looking at the track temperature. It's even fallen by a degree, and even 1 degree, 2 degrees, falling just a little bit throughout this session. That may be a little bit of a benefit for these drivers that go a little bit later in this session. Again, 1 degree, how much of a difference it can make. It will make just a slight difference, but we'll see if anybody who really has the pace to go out there and compete for this pole award has waited this long to try to get one of their laps going. You see Nicholas Doucette right there in the number 24. Has not put down a lap. We know he's been awfully fast early on in the season, so he should be somebody that may have something to say about Jose Solis or Mauricio or Brandon McKissick, who are up there in the top 3 right now.
Of note, as these drivers continue on the session, there were a couple number changes for drivers entering tonight. Switching over from Red Bull Racing, Christopher Tate is now driving for Chip Ganassi Racing in the 40 machine this week. The 76 also was moved over to the 66. Of course, the 66 driven in real life by Jeff Green and is that renumbered 0 machine when Best Buy jumped aboard on that car in real life in 2006 as well. We're going to see which drivers are going to end up having the most consistency here, because this is one of 5 intermediate tracks on the schedule, Blake. If you don't know how to drive a 1.5 miles, congratulations, you're in the wrong era.
Absolutely, and with this schedule, with the tracks that we're approaching, you have to be able to tackle those 1.5 mile racetracks. There's a skill that these drivers are going to have to learn how to, and especially, again, qualifying, how important that is. 50-lap race is not a significant amount of time if you give yourself a bad qualifying effort. We spoke about it a little earlier in the broadcast, but we're going to keep talking about that with these short race lengths. Time and time again, you got to nail your qualifying lap, and it looks like many of the same drivers that we saw, they were able to put down a sporty lap at Auto Club and at Daytona, may help themselves here quite a bit by starting up in the top 5.
That is the last of the drivers who will have a chance to set a time. Multiple competitors have elected not to set them, and there goes his run. As he hits the wall down the middle of the backstretch, that counts as an incident, and that means the 83 Jimenez, who was happy to make the field the first time out last time at California, will not set a time on the board here in Las Vegas. So in our words, 32 drivers setting times, 43 drivers have made the starting grid after many trying to qualify in through the non-chartered registration session, hearing more than 10 plus trying to get those spots, and now it's about time to see where everyone's spots are for the points paying time. Jose Solis Jr. set the pole time tonight by 3/100ths of a second. The number 11 is flying high so far. He starts the pole with Gabriel Mauricio in second, his best start of the season. 1/1000th of a second behind is Brandon McKissick. Then it's the Chevrolet of Nicholas Doucette. His Jeff Gordon machine starts in front of a car that in real life did not make a race the whole start of the season. Larry Pace is 5th alongside Justin Rowden. Alex Kolonix making Kyle Kyle Petty smile, as that's amazing. From that row 4 spot with Marcus Lindsay alongside Sean Pellick, Thomas Lewandowski rounds out the top 10 for the Wood Brothers.
It'll be Triffin Davis who roll off in the 11th starting position. 12th will go to Dylan Roberts in that number 8 Budweiser Chevrolet. 13th starting spot will go to Zach Campbell. 14th was Parker Alexander. Christian Budd and the Matt Kenseth machine will roll off in 15th. 16th goes to Michael Stroll. James Holzer in 17th. Christina Ryan 18th. Brendan McGee will roll off from 19th. And Tyler Head will start in 20th.
In his new ride, Christopher Tate starts things off for the Corral's Light Machine in the Silver Bullet from 21st spot alongside Ryan Doucette, who's had a wild time driving as Robbie Gordon in really living up to the Robbie Gordon name. Casey Carrington, 23rd. Well, Trey Bach will drive 4. Petty Enterprises, 24th. Anthony Krobach starts 25th with Alex Bates in 26th. Emily Howe starts 27th. She starts alongside Ali Osman. Then it's Timothy Latham and Philip Snipes riding at the top 30. Separation from that mark. 4/10 already, Blake.
4/10, and it's even more when you look back to these two drivers. Wesley Burchett in 31st, Alan Balancino in 32nd, and that is the last two drivers that elected to take a time in qualifying. 33rd on back, which includes Lucas Kress, Sean Butler, Aaron Smith, Andy Trupiano, Trey Ryan, John Schwartz, Jeffrey McClintock, Brandon Monsivas, Juan Jimenez, Ken Huff, and Hayden Repis. They did not put a time down, so 11 drivers electing to start from the back of the field, either because they didn't put a lap down or weren't able to put one down in the 5-minute qualifying session. So 11 drivers rolling off from the back of the field will round out your starting grid.
Bad news for fans of Sean Butler. It appears he's not been able to get the car out in time for the starting grid. He talked about on social media after his strong run at California how his team was able to now afford more than one tire and afford a motel room. Unfortunately, it looks like they haven't been able to afford qualifying tires or workers to get the car to the racetrack. He'll start from the pit lane. That'll put him with where he qualified about 25 seconds back behind the pack lake once the field gets rolling.
Well, and I have to say, I believe this is an intentional move on Sean Butler's part. We know he's capable of perhaps qualifying at the front and running up there, so I think this was a planned move from Butler to save a fast repair, try to avoid some carnage, and at least try to get a couple of laps into this race. But we'll see if it's an effective strategy. We've seen a lot of cautions early on in the previous races. We'll see if we're up for that yet again.
iRacing pace car set to drop off. This is the UAW or Daimler Chrysler 400 from Las Vegas. Jose Solis Jr. in control of the field. Green flag is out. We're underway from Sin City. And a good start for the 11 machine. Jose Solis Jr. leads the first time around. Mauricio under attack already by Brandon McKissick, trying to channel his inner Jamie McMurray around the bottom of the racetrack. Running the wall behind them, Justin Rowden in the Kevin Harvick machine. Multiple lines being utilized early.
And you see these drivers all over this racetrack, and interestingly enough, I wasn't sure how much we were going to see drivers wanting to favor the bottom, at least in 1 and 2. A lot of bumps down there. It's a really rough part of the racetrack, but then again, so is the very top side of 1 and 2, and yet we saw plenty of drivers going out there. It'll be interesting to see how drivers are willing to save tires. You believe that the bottom lane is probably the better lane to save tires, and how these drivers are going to save the right rear. Again, very hot conditions at this racetrack, 142-degree track temperature, so saving that rear grip going to be crucial for these drivers. It'll be interesting to see how they all sort that out, as it seems like Larry Pacey are going to lead that inside line here to 3 and 4, as Brandon McKissick will duck out in front of him. That's the battle for 3rd and 4th between Pace and Nicholas Doucette.
Check myself, Casey Mears, of course, in the 42 machine. It's Jamie McMurray who's in the 26. The 26, Triffin Davis, really had a roller coaster of emotions out in California. He's amongst those trying the top line still. He's up 2 spots already in this one. Of note, Christopher Tate has had an issue. He's come down to the pit lane already, just 3 laps into the event for the 40.
That's tough to see. We'll have to kind of go back and see exactly what put him down there. I don't think it was any issue. Didn't hit the wall or get any damage or anything like that. Just pulled into the pit lane, and he's still sitting there. So not exactly sure what happened. But out front, you can see the vast lead that Jose Solis Jr. has stretched out for himself. Over 10 car lengths already in front of Gabriel Mauricio there for second. So a great job of stretching it out. And again, we see so many these drivers just really slick, rather. We see Alex Kolonix makes a save right there. So these guys are really having to wheel these cars in. Again, it's only going to get worse. We're on lap number 5. We may have about a 25 or 30 lap run for some of these guys if we stay green.
Sick is okay because, well, Sick met Cool still in 2006. Last I checked. Either way, some of the drivers starting to slip back a little bit, including the #1 driver in the power rankings entering this week. Dylan Roberts, Amaze Drivers, went the Dale Jr. machine. He was first in those rankings. Their first initiation. Larry Pace around, he's in the wall. Brings Kevin Harvick with them. Caution flag is out for the first time in Las Vegas. And guess who predicted a caution on lap 7? Emily Howe was correct.
And again, this is just going to be a classic case of these guys getting really loose into the corner. Everybody kind of running the bottom of 3 and 4. You want to try to run right on that white line. And Pace tries to correct the car a couple of times. He chases it all the way up the racetrack to do it. You see a couple of wiggles out, gets the right rear into the wall. And unfortunately, Justin Rowden just not able to slow up in time for Pace, who was trying to collect that car, gets into the back of him and sends him around. Only one car incident there, or at least Pace gets involved, and he only collects one other in Justin Rowden. But again, this track is slick with how hot it is out here.
And a rough beginning here for that 50 machine, the Auto Development Company's car. We mentioned the speed just showcased all season from Larry. And now Larry's to the back of the pack. Will have to try and charge through the pack for one of the first times for himself this season after being a front runner at California and having decent track position for the get-go at Daytona. You know who this helps, though? Sean Butler, who at the time of the caution had been fairly far behind the pack and now gets to catch the pack. In fact, he's passing cars. Too many cars. He's risking a penalty here.
He might be doing just that. He's going to have to let a number of cars go and catch the field. But another interesting thing that we're seeing up here, we only went about 10 laps there, not even 10 laps on these Goodyear Eagles. And I think most of the field is going to come down and replace all 4 of them. So that is how much tires are going to matter here, how much you don't want to take a risk. I was wondering if we'd see, we might see a couple of 2-tire calls out here. I think I see the case with that Matt Kenseth machine, the number 17, Christian Budd, going to be the first off of pit road. And indeed, it's just right side tires for him and a couple of other drivers who are going to get some great track position out of this call.
One driver has elected to stay out for now. This is Ken Huff. There is an additional lap to pull on down to the pit lane because of a couple drivers who had fallen a lap down prior to the caution flag period. But it's also worth noting, if you're involved in an incident here with this track, and for all tracks that are not a super speedway now, Blake, this was a change during the week. After the 7 big ones or so at California, there is no longer a fast repair available for all tracks that are not super speedway packages, meaning all the drivers with this new damage model for the speedways will have to get repairs done manually if they want to keep going. As expected, Ken Huff comes on down, brings a couple others with them, in fact, here, as we start lap 10 this time around.
It's actually really interesting to see. We had a number of drivers who came down that first time. Jeffrey McClintock, I believe, the number 20 machine of Brandon Masivas right there, stayed out and came down. So there were a couple of drivers who have, under this caution, come down for a second time. So we'll have to see if maybe this is right on the edge of that fuel window, that maybe a couple of drivers are going to come down and top off. I know we have a much shorter fuel cell than the typical 11 or 18.7 gallons rather that these drivers typically carry. So we'll have to see if maybe this is a strategy call for a couple of those drivers who gave up some good track position to try to come down and top off with fuel.
That's going to make things really intriguing on the fuel strategy. Everyone's really synced up strategy-wise except for maybe Ken Huff, who went the further lap, of course, so there's that extra lap. It could be interesting if it gets to the point where we have a long green flag run, because it then becomes the question of who pits and where. Meanwhile, let's go through a quick rundown on how things have broken down so far. Christian Budd is the leader with the 2-tire call. That Matt Kenseth machine was a top 5 machine in the real world in 2006. Jose Solis Jr. second. Mauricio was in third still, making Jeff Burton proud, with Nicholas Doucette in fourth. It's an incredible run for Alex Kalanick so far, with Tryfon Davis at the Jamie McMurray machine in sixth, Marcus Lindsay, Brandon McKissick, Zach Campbell, Thomas Lewandowski, the top 10. Of note, there may be some nervous drivers in the heart of the field, because the 66, I've also noticed he did not gain too many spots from this. He actually went fuel only. He's in 20th on the restart. No pressure.
It's going to be interesting to see how much he can hang on to that race car, being surrounded by cars that either took 2 or 4 tires. The majority back there, further back in the pack, would be drivers that took 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. So going to be interesting to see. We know there's a lot of tire fall off for about the first 20 or 30 laps of a run. So we'll see how that stacks up and how drivers are able to navigate through traffic. One encouraging thing, though, is seeing these drivers run all over the place in 1 and 2. 3 and 4, you're kind of seeing most of them migrate down to the bottom side of the racetrack, but it seems like it is wide open and kind of where you feel comfortable in 1 and 2. And again, it's a risk first reward, because I think the high side can be pretty sporty, but again, you're going to wear your tires up there if you continue to run up there. So we'll see the balance of how much do you push it on the short run and how much do you defend your track position.
A fifth the way through the action here at Las Vegas, Christian Budd in control of the field this time. Pace car is off. Waiting all the way to the restart zone this time. Green flag back underway.
You also have to worry about cold tires, really hot track. You have to see if somebody spins the tires, but it looks like so far so good here up front. But they are already about 3 wide around the 10th position, even 4 wide in some places, as drivers are running all the way from the bottom to the top out of turns 1 and 2.
You know, some of the drivers in the middle of that Hornet's nest, you may notice a yellow and black car charging ahead. How about 10 spots nearly gained by Sean Butler in 2 corners? He's already back on the precipice of the top 20. Of note, up at the front, it's still Bud holding on, but Solis Jr. making a peek. One's in the grass. It's Rowden. Rowden with more problems. He's rejoined the track. However, it looks like he may have gone into Aaron Smith II, who has to cut the apron.
He has to go down to the apron. Another car kind of scraped the outside wall in 1 and 2. It was Tryfon Davis. He got right up against that safer barrier in turns 1 and 2, but luckily was able to hang on to it. Right now, Christian Budd, 2-tire call for him, has him in front of this field, and he has exactly what he wants to see behind him, with perhaps just a couple laps is not fresh left side tires, as he has Jose Solis Jr. and Nicholas Doucette side by side behind him. That's going to slow them down, and that's going to give Bud perhaps a little bit of an advantage out in this clean air, even having those worn left side tires.
He continues to play the lines. Davis, meanwhile, is continuing to charge ahead. Talked about him looking strong in the first few laps. He's up 7 spots now, to the top 4, in fact. And he's bringing Zach Campbell with him, who's looking for his best run since Daytona a couple weeks ago after a not-so-good run at California.
Campbell on the bottom, and we know how strong he is on the road courses, and he's looking awfully sporty right here. He's going to make it 3 wide as they enter turns 3 and 4. He's going to run the bottom, put that 26 car right in the middle of Triffin Davis. Marcus Lindsay trying to make it work all the way up top, and he's going to be able to complete the pass. So Campbell methodically working his way through the field. You got to take these spots when you can, because once you get at a certain part of the run, especially with these hot conditions, everybody's going to be really sliding really loose. As we get an onboard shot here from the number 8 of Dylan Roberts, you can see he's running the bottom side, all the bumps that you're having to travel over, and he's going to have to watch out. He's in the middle 3 wide, believe it or not.
Yes, that's Ryan Doucette now. And the Harris machine trying to stick the bottom. Having to really turn it a lot more to the right than the left, I've noticed. Having to run that very bottom because coming out of turn 2, a couple drivers have already lost the front grip coming off the corner and have had to check up the gas. It just doesn't seem to stick down there.
Now you imagine the bottom side going to be really slick. You're having to lift a lot. It's going to get the car sideways, rotated, and then again with this heat, it's going to be very hard to hang on. Now here at 3 and 4, things are a little bit different. We either see the very bottom or the very top of the racetrack come into play as we have a change up front for the race lead, at least momentarily. Doucette poked out front. Now Christian Budd has it at the line, and they'll go side by side as they enter 1 and 2.
How about near 3 wide? As Solis Jr. tries the wall. That doesn't work. He nearly loops it. Doucette can't make it work on the bottom side. Christian Budd making them work to the backstretch. Turn around goes McKissick. Caution flag is out for the second time tonight. And it's Brandon McKissick in the KC Mears machine getting turned around as he tried to dive underneath somebody by turning across the 26's nose.
That's what it looked like to me. Fishtailing it a little bit off of turn 2. You can see just a little wiggled here down the straightaway, trying to find, I believe you're right, Justin. I think he was looking for a way around. He had a little bit of a run on Marcus Lindsay in the 6 car. I think he was just trying to duck out of line and thought that he would have that 26 car of Davis clear by the time he made that move. And you could see just a foot more, and he probably could have made the move happen. But otherwise, he gets turned, and no harm, no foul, as I believe he was the only car that was involved in that. So no worse for the wear as anybody else, but a bold move there, just wasn't quite clear down in the bottom to get it done.
Especially at that time up at the front. This should put drivers around that edge, being towards the fuel mark. McKissick did get the most damage out of that to the right rear quarter panel and to the spoiler, so that may impact that machine. Someone hit the yellow cone, though, on entry. No penalty, though, yet. Everyone else ducking on in. That call from Christian Budd, we'll see if how many people think, you know what, let's try and replicate it.
Well, the problem is if you're Christian Budd, you're pretty much forced to take 4 tires now because you took 2 last time, so you open the door for a lot of other 2-tire takers, and boy, do we have a lot of them. The 09 took 2. I believe Jose Solis Jr. took 2 tires as he's the first off of pit lane. Zach Campbell, James Holzer gained a lot of spots on pit road, so I think we have a lot of 2-tire takers, and that's the problem with doing it early. You show everybody that it works. You're in a position where you kind of have to take 4 tires the next time you come out, and everybody else saw exactly what you did that first run, and they're going to be on the flip side of that strategy and take 2 tires and put you in a bad spot. So unfortunate there for Christian Budd. He kind of showed everybody that 2 tires may work.
So Solis Jr. trying it, Campbell's trying it, Holzer's trying it. Holzer, mind you, was in the midst of a hornet's nest of cars before that call. One driver did miss their pit stall. That's the 20 machine who has that issue, Monsalves. Christian Budd, the first on 4 tires, keep in mind. Brandon McGee also tried 2 tires, but the Casey Kane machine is still in 11th. And still, the 66 is yet to take a set of tires. Somebody should tell them that they have plenty of tires available, and they don't have to pay extra for them today, or at all. You can have as many as you want. You can make a Ford of tires if you want today.
Now, I remember going to Martinsville one time, I believe it was in 2010, And that's pretty much what was around one pit stall in particular. It was Dale Earnhardt Jr. I thought that, my goodness, you looked at every other pit stall and they had several stacks of tires, and then that 88 pit box had, it must have been 20 sets of tires. I mean, it looked like they built a fort around their pit box of just mountains and mountains of tires, which, of course, you didn't have the tire limits or the exact same way that you have it now. Teams could kind of spend whatever they wanted on tires, so he definitely had the most there for sure, though. I remember that.
You gotta love the tire forts, right?
Of course.
I'm curious on how many who've been able to try and make second decks with them at the racetracks in the past, stuff like that. Let's not go down that rabbit hole today, because we're almost at halfway already. Solis Jr. has led a majority of the laps, or will, by the time the green flag waves. Christian Budd's led 11. Jose Solis Jr., 9 laps. It's worth noting, we haven't mentioned the brand of the tires. This was something, in part with Sim, in part with, well, let's put it simply. This is now where, in the real world, there was a time when General Tires could have become the main tire for NASCAR competition. That was during a potential shortage back in the mid-2000s with Goodyear. That didn't come to fruition, of course, but now General Tires are being used for this series.
Well, heck, and remember back in the day, iRacing, you had iRacing Raptors used to be the name of name of the iRacing tire that was officially put on these things before they got the Goodyear, to be able to put the Eagle branding on it. But again, I guess we're just going back in time a little bit. I'm not quite sure when they got the Goodyears in the iRacing, but I think it must have been 2011 or 2012 that they put the Goodyears back in. But for a time, you had iRacing Raptors that you had to put on your race car.
Yeah, and it took even more time with this car, I remember, and for a few others, because I remember calling series with this, it was still the iRacing stamp for a little while. But now, these General Tires are ready to see how 2 of them work compared to the 4. Bud is the first on 4 tires in 4th position. Will that help him around here? Remember, that last run was a little bit shorter than the previous one in terms of green flag laps by 1 or 2 laps total. Pace car is off. Into the restart zone. Green flag up in the hands of Barney. Back it away.
See another good restart on the bottom here for Jose Solis Jr. We've seen that bottom work as they're not up to full song in 1 and 2. That shorter way around the racetrack going to be the way to try and clear that number 19. Barely going to have it done off of turn number 2. And it'll be interesting to see here with this 2 tire calls. Solis Jr. early on made up quite a gap on the field when he got out in the lead. We'll see if he's capable of doing it here. They are 3 and 4 wide back in the pack.
Something had to happen for Ken Huff to have that many drivers want to pass him in that corner alone. Ken Huff is actually driving 5 miles an hour down the straightaway slower than everyone else around him. I don't think he took tires last time. He rolled through last time in the pit lane. Remember, he tried to lead a lap last caution, the first one rather, and did not get the lead lap. So he's still in 41st. Up at the front for the race lead. Inside, it's Zach Campbell. The Pest driver trying to dive to the apron. He leads for the first time at Las Vegas.
And Campbell will take the lead, trying to make the bottom work. We see, though, as the laps continue to go on, everybody's starting to kind of find the middle there, 1 and 2. You see a long line of race cars there in the middle. That's going to take Zach Campbell out of the draft. And just as quickly as he has the lead, he's going to lose it. He may even lose second here to Christian Budd.
That is a risk right now if he can't get himself clear. Bud's not getting the run to get to his quarter panel yet, though. In fact, everyone's given a lot of space. No major attempts at a side draft. It wasn't as prevalent in this day quite yet. Right now, Jose Solis Jr. is clear for the race lead again, and there it is for Bud. He's outside. Campbell stuck to the very bottom of the circuit.
And again, this is going to be a balancing act for these drivers. Even though we're about halfway done already, we still have about 25 laps to the end. Tire wear is going to matter. So if you're Zach Campbell here on the bottom, you're battling for second, you may not be wanting to get full throttle on corner exit. You don't want to heat up those rear tires too significantly. If you think we're going to go to a long run, you see another slow car on the bottom of the apron in 3 and 4. It's the 00 of Aaron Smith. But you're at that point in the run where maybe you consider lifting a little bit, maybe going about 90% rather than 100% at this point, because you let these laps click on by, and I can imagine if we get a long run, the lack of rear grip is going to be pretty startling for some of these drivers, and those who have it are going to be able to make up a lot of ground late in the run.
We are racing it early on with Larry Pace, and we know the talent of Larry Pace and who he's worked with in his virtual career. And now for Christian Budd, he's the first driver on 4 tires, really gaining ground on the bottom, and just avoided that big bump that's been causing lots of checkups since he's single file. Compare that, though, to Mauricio. He's had to lift hard. He's now losing ground. In fact, Alex Kolonix in the Petty Enterprises machine is trying to pass him on the outside with the help of the Phoenix Racing machine in front with the draft.
That draft plays a big part in these cars. Not as much dirty air that you have to deal with. It's a lot about where everybody else is running that you want to be, and you can see how difficult it is. You see the 31 Jeff Burton machine on the bottom there, gonna try to slide up but just can't quite get the job done. And much like you would see at Phoenix today, the NASCAR Cup Series race, a long line of cars working together on the top side. They carry that momentum off, and Kolonix going to roll right back to that 31, try to make that move, and kind of look to the outside, but not able to get it done. One car sliding through 3 and 4. Another one out of shape. That is the 2 of Parker Alexander, who saved it. And of course, you had Trey Ryan, who was all out of sorts there as well. You got a blinker on the bottom, and Anthony Krobach. So a lot going on here at the back of the pack.
Of note, Aaron Smith II has parked the Michael Waltrip Racing machine, the 00 Dream machine. Had steering issues prior to that incident. That ended up sending him down the pit lane, and his decision to move it on down. Trey Ryan, meanwhile, trying to prevent being taken 3 wide, slides up to the top, slides back down to the middle in this respective grouping. For the race lead, though, it's Christian Budd, who has made the move on Jose Solis Jr. The 4 tires have finally worked out. Solis Jr. hit the wall coming off of turn 4, and Christian Budd made it look easy.
Well, and that's one thing we talked about with these cars, the extra skew on the right rear. That's something these drivers have to continually relearn. You even heard it with the next-gen car. Lack of side force is a big slide out of Zach Campbell. My goodness, he was able to save that. But big issues there for the 19, saving that rear grip. But again, there's a skew on these cars that makes it really interesting for them to try to gauge exactly where that right rear is when they come off the corner.
Justin Roundin's also had an issue. His Kevin Harvick machine has been pulled off the wall after rubbing it the whole half point to the front straightaway start and finish line. Zach Campbell now paying the price for the 2-tire call. We found the limit. It's 10 laps. You can make them work. Guess how many laps are in? 1 or 2 more than that.
And that's what I was saying earlier. I believe that the drivers who do save their tires, but you could throw that out the window. Trouble, I believe, on the front straightaway. Again, once again, the 16 of Trey Ryan. Looks like he had a little bit of issues there, and perhaps even Larry Pace, I think, may have been involved in that one once again. But caution flag is out, and we can throw that long run out the window.
Yeah, let's take a look as, Trey Ryan absolutely out of shape. And unfortunately, Larry Pace was his safety valve, and in turn, Larry Pace sent to the pit lane right to his box.
If anything, Pace looks like he may have gotten the worst end of that stick, as there's a lot of damage on that 50, a little bit of front-end damage. Not so much on the 16, though. Kind of, like you said, used him up a little bit. May have gotten some damage on the lower side of the race car, cutting through the grass, because it's really rough there. You have a lot of bumps. You have the Legends Oval, or the road course, rather, that's there on the front straightaway that you can cut through with the pavement. So Pace, you see, rolls it all the way down pit lane, and it's not been a great day to write home about for Larry Pace so far.
Again, as we talked about, that car has massively overperformed to its real-world counterpart, so there is that. 16 laps to go. And we ran our longest run of the race right there. 15 laps in for these respective drivers. And now it's time for more pit stop time. Expecting more 4-tire calls after the struggles on 2 for a lot of competitors after that 8 or 9 lap plateau. More so around 10.
We'll see if what they're able to do. And, of course, this is the money stop. So right here, I think you're in a position where you're not going to pit the rest of the race. Do you risk taking a 2-tire call here? Do you slide through your pit box with all of these hot temperatures? This is where your track position for the rest of the race is going to be determined. It looks like for a majority of the field that I'm looking at, 4 tires is the call, and it looks like Jose Solis Jr. Oh, I can't tell who won that race off pit road. We'll have to let iRacing determine it, but I believe it may have been Jose Solis Jr.
So the first pit stall might have been a big part of that race off the line. Solis Jr. almost got the edge, but it looks like it will be. Christian Budd third, Nicholas Doucette second in that race. Of note, the 20 of Gonçalves did not come down to the pit lane yet in his 20 machine. It's been a struggle for Brandon as well. The thing is, remember the strategy cards. A couple are trying to roll the dice because this is the right place to do it. Amongst those trying either fuel only or struggle to find their stalls or 2 tires, John Schwartz in the 95, fuel only. As well, Jimenez missed his stall, might come in from 14th. 2 tires, Sean Pellig, he was in the back of the group in the Jimmy Johnson machine, he's now 18th. Just about everyone else took 4 tires and fuel there. Jimenez, as expected, coming back on in. So John Schwartz, the biggest risk taker here in the 95.
And I really don't think that that's going to be a decision that you'll want to live with. I mean, at this point, you've kind of made your bed, right? You're just hoping that maybe the race kind of has some issues from here on, and you're able to squeak on by. But it'll be really difficult to do that. And of course, everybody around you knows if you're not on 4 fresh tires, they know that they're going to try to get by you as quickly as possible. You're going to drop like a rock. You're going to be really sideways. And the other thing you have to worry about, Justin, is spinning the tires on this restart. You think about the tires, the wear it has, and then going through a heating cycle. This is a prime position if you're on those old tires for the tires to spin or to just not get a great launch off of the drop of the green flag. So that's one thing we'll have to watch for out of anybody who either took 2 or didn't take any at all, is making sure you're getting through the gears well on the restart.
Of note, the track temperatures have gone down to a race low 140. You can still somewhat fry an egg on that. But still, these drivers will not be thinking about just the difference of the 3. It's still going to be slippy slidey for the final 15 laps here. The 20 as expected pulling on down. However, even though that does get a lead lap for them because it's 1 to go, they get the reward of a green flag penalty for pitting in a closed pit lane. So it's Solis Jr. in the race lead, Doucette in second, Budd, Doucette, so 2 Doucettes in the outside. Schwartz on no tires and no qualifying time and no practice time is in 5th. Mauricio's in 6th. Lindsay, he's been quietly top 10 all race. He's in 7th. Zach Campbell, after his 2-tire gamble, is in 8th. James Holster's 2-tire gamble got him to 9th in the end. Kolonix is rounding out the top 10 for the restart. Who's your favorite? Who's your pick here? Because it's looked very quick for some of the drivers, in particular that driver of the 11.
I was about to say, I think it'd be hard to pick against Jose Solis Jr. just with how much raw pace, how much speed he's carried in that number 11 Chevrolet. Just any strategy that we've thrown at him tonight, he's able to get back out front. But I tell you what, Ryan Doucette, I think, is somebody we'll have to watch for. Drove all the way from 22nd up to the 4th position. He's somebody who's cut through the field. I mean, he pretty much did it last week. He just ran out of time with as many cautions as we had. So I wouldn't sleep on Ryan Doucette either.
13 laps to decide it. From Las Vegas Motor Speedway, iRacing pace car is off. Each restart has been held all the way to Barney's command. Solis Jr. waiting patiently for the start. Green flag is out, back underway. A clean launch again for all top 5 rows. Oh, and there's the move from Davis, 3 wide.
Well, it seems like a pretty even restart. As you mentioned, 3 wide there as they're going to put Schwartz on the bottom. He's going to fade there on those old tires, and everybody's going to try to find some way to get around him. As they work off of 1 and 2, Christian Budd, big run down the back straightaway, 3 wide once again. In front of him, Marcus Lindsay, James Holzer, and Dylan Roberts there as Schwartz is loose in front of them, and oh boy, he is going to sink like a rock if he doesn't wreck.
Sean Butler's in the wall. Butler sent up into the fence. No caution, we stay green as they scatter 4-5 wide down the front stretch. For the race lead, Christian Budd has the edge into turns 1 and 2. He wraps the bottom. Solis Jr. up top. Here comes Doucette. Nearly hitting the wall is Nicholas Doucette. Zach Campbell avoids him as he makes his way back up to the top 5.
And into 3 and 4 they go. Christian Budd, preferred lane, I'd have to say, here at this juncture of the racetrack is Budd. Now holding on, big run off the top from Jose Solis Jr. They'll be side by side into 1 and 2, and of course Ryan Doucette. These two are side by side. Does a window open for him to try and take the race lead? We'll come around to 10 to go this time.
Budd really wheeling it on the bottom, nearly cleared down the backstretch. Ryan Doucette's moved up top. Nicholas Doucette wants the bottom though. 2 by 2 for the top 2 groupings. Zach Campbell watching as well. Campbell slides up top. This time around, Budd at the stripe gets the lead lap with 10 laps to go.
Christian Budd barely hanging on, doing all he can to try to keep that car wrapped around that white line at the bottom of the racetrack, but a wonderful corner there from Jose Solis Jr. may give him the race lead off at turn number 2, give the momentum to that number 11, and he'll be out front by about half a car length as they work into 3 and 4, but Christian Budd, once again, charging back on the bottom.
Ryan Doucette lost some grip though on the corner exit. Nicholas Doucette taking the apron to try and get the run. Solis Jr. let the lap, and he gets the scoring loop for the caution. At the back of the pack, it's Jeffrey McClintock. And the Scott Riggs machine in trouble. Caution flag is out, and he got help from Juan Jimenez in the 83.
This is pretty clear cut right here, Justin. Jimenez bouncing off the apron in 3 and 4. That's one way a surefire way to upset the race car. To try to catch it, he's chasing it up the racetrack, and McClintock did all he can to lock it down and really didn't hit anything and didn't spin fully around. So a solid job there from McClintock, who, I mean, he really had nowhere to go right here. Just that you could see right there, bouncing off the apron with the left side tires, and McClintock does all he can to keep it out of the wall, and honestly does a pretty good job of it, but comes to a dead stop on the racetrack, and we'll bring it into a brief green flag run. And now the question becomes, Justin, do tires matter enough that you're going to pit with 8 laps to go?
The 83 has been told, because he just claimed the caution, he is done for the day. He is parked for the rest of this race. Jimenez will join the DNF list. 42nd will be where the 83 will end up in the end here. We ran about 6 laps under green. Who takes the gamble? Top 4 thought about it. Doucette thought about it. Ryan Doucette commits to it. He goes down with Triffin Davis, and they are lonely amongst the top 10 who decided that.
Well, with a bunch of cars kind of darting back and forth, it looked like we were going to have a little bit more of a split decision there, that it was going to be more kind of half and half, but many elected to stay out onto the racetrack. And, you know, the one thing that stinks about pitting here, Justin, is you're pretty much hoping that the rest of the race goes green. You need those green flag laps with that tire advantage to be able to make up that ground. So at this point, you're hoping it goes green all the way to the end, or if you can get a green-white checker just before the white flag, perhaps that could be a good situation as well. But you're hoping that maybe you start around 10th or 15th. That could work your way up pretty quickly. Not sure if you're starting 20th on back, 25th on back, if this is going to be a call that's going to be a race-winning move.
This is going to be the biggest question mark for many of the drivers at this point. Even then, some of the drivers took 2 tires who just pit, such as Trey Ryan, who just spun a few laps ago, and Philip Snipes. Everyone else took 4. McClintock having to take some damage repair as a result of the damage to the quarter panel, while the Morgan Shepherd machine of Hayden Repez had 20 seconds of repairs total. So with 6 laps to go, This is where the importance of making sure that you get that timed up right, that line timed up, making sure you don't overly exert these tires is going to be so critical, Blake, as so many have had.
It is going to be very critical, as you mentioned. How do you fare on those old tires? Are you sliding around? How do you get a great restart? And again, the other thing that goes against the four tire calls is, lights are still on in the pace car right now, so we're not going to get going back green until there's about 4 laps to go in this race. So again, even with the length of the caution, it can work against you here if you came down pit road and put on 4 fresh tires.
It's worth noting that some of the drivers are understanding the importance here. Marcus Lindsay has ended up having a call over the radio and saying, I gotta find a crew chief in spotter. He has found John Gerlinski to help him guide the rest of the way from the 9th position.
It's not a bad spotter.
Not bad. Not bad. Remember, they've had a long history of working together in the past in the iRacing service with their eNASCAR careers. So that's not a surprise to see Lindsay get that support from John Gerlinski.
I was about to say, you get some of the best in the business to surround you and on track. It's definitely not a bad combo. You can see iRacing members since 2008. Man, I don't know another ticker that puts that on there, but that is a pretty cool statistic. When you go back to prior to 2010 and being around iRacing that long, I mean, you're talking about the OGs of this service and guys who have been around the sim racing community for a very long time and seen it grown from what it once was to what it is now.
1 to go. Solis Jr., the race leader, still. He's led 25 of 45. Christian Budd with 18 laps less in second. That's Nicholas Doucette in third. Zach Campbell is in fourth. Alex Collins is in fifth. Gabriel Mauricio is in sixth. James Holzer, Dylan Roberts, Marcus Lindsay, and Michael Stroll, who has been quietly moving up silently, slowly, is in 10th. Of note, the biggest mover as well in the race so far, with all the shuffling, Alan Ballacino. And take a guess which number he's driving. Take a guess which car he's driving. It's a Corral lawn machine in the 46 tonight. Don't you remember the 46 with the Corral lawn machines driven at this era, Blake? How hard
I remember the 46. I'll tell you one paint scheme I really liked. I think this may precede 2006, but the DLP, the 96 car, I was always that was one of my favorite kind of underdog cars to cheer for. I really liked the paint scheme. But I don't think that was 2000. That may have been 06 or 07.
It's 07 more so.
Yeah.
That was started as basically a satellite team, Hall of Fame Racing. Also had support from JGR at one point. It was 06 with Reigns and Terry Labonte that had some runs too. 5 to go to 4 to go. Back underway. Who's going to have the run for the win? Campbell's got the run to make it 3 wide into turn 1.
3 wide for second. Doucette trying to make it happen, or actually Ryan Doucette's all the way in the back. That is Zach Campbell, who is just on the outside, and Nick Doucette looking for the race lead. Solis going to be split 3 wide. It'll be 3 abreast for the race lead into 3 and 4.
Christian Budd, who's been inside the top 5 all day, has been shuffled out of it. Nicholas Doucette, he's looking for the lead for the first time. He's got the edge. 3 laps to go. Here comes the 19 of Zach Campbell up the middle. Jose Solis Jr. has to run the wall.
And Solis, he kept the momentum, but going all the way to the wall, nearly scrapes it. He's going to have a big run off at 2. Nick Doucette, a big wiggle. Solis can't take the run. That's going to give it to Zach Campbell as they work into 3 and 4. Campbell now up by a nose, and he may have the race lead off at turn number 4.
Campbell drifting at the whole corner makes it. Zach Campbell leads once again. His second lead lap of the day. 2 laps to go.
And that was a smart move there from Campbell, who basically blocked the move that could have come from Jose Solis Jr. Makes it a 2-horse race at the front of the field. 2 laps to go. They'll take the white flag this time, but now Nick Doucette charging on the bottom, or charging on the top side, but caution in the back of the pack.
Doucette got the scoring loop as Alex Bates from 28th position has gotten some help to bring out the caution from Andy Trupiano. And again, green, white, checkered, and at point of no return at this point, Blake, this changes everything.
Indeed, it does, and it allows those drivers, again, like we talked about, who did come down pit road, perhaps an opportunity to gain a couple of more spots, but many of them were just put in a really bad position. You can see right there a little bit of contact as I believe Andy Trupiano tried to throw it up the inside and just moved up a little bit, got a little tight, got into Alex Bates there on the top, and you'd see kind of the gaggle that's caused by everybody on that different tire strategy and trying to get spots every which way you can. But unfortunately, Trupiano claiming involvement has parked it for the race. And unfortunately for Alex Bates, gets turned around very late in the going.
And let's take a look once again. This is from McGee, who is towards the back of the pack. I think he actually got pushed from behind that sped him up there. Or it looked like, at least, because he got on the brakes right and then picked up about 5 miles an hour after, just as he was about to clear it. Looks okay, though, despite that call. But we mentioned the point of no return. How that works is cautions will not be thrown in WINSTEL sanctioned competition during either the final lap of the race, which is an iRacing standard situation, or during any of the laps during the green-white checkered, the final 2 laps in general. Meaning, you have a wreck with 2 to go, you don't end it under caution. It ends under green regardless here, Blake, in this situation. In other words, this is about to get very crazy, especially with Nicholas Doucette looking for the W for the 2nd time, Zach Campbell looking not to finish in 2nd for the 2nd time, and Jose Solis Jr., the most dominant driver of the race, in 3rd position.
Well, this is one of those spots, Justin, you know, obviously there's no tire saving. You're going all out. And with how these cars kind of pack up, how the draft works, it's hard to know exactly which position you want to be in. If you're the leader and you go early on the restart, you're going to get out to a lead, but that draft is going to pull everybody right back to you. So it kind of becomes a cat and mouse game of where exactly do you want to be when this last lap begins. And I can't really answer that because we saw every lane kind of work out there. We saw Zach Campbell make the middle work, even in the tri-oval, to try to get the race lead. We've seen the bottom, the top, and every which way in 3 and 4 be able to work out. So it's hard to know exactly where you want to be. I wouldn't count Solis Jr. out, or even that 31 machine of Mauricio, who's right there in that 2nd lane. If these guys get battling up for the lead side by side, going to slow them down, they can get a big run and try to use that to go to victory lane themselves.
2 to green, once again. It's going to be a very stressful time, to put it lightly, now, as a result. Here, this situation. Just got some confirmation in regards to that situation with the incident. There was a tap from behind from Jeffrey McClintock. That's why the speed picked up for the 9. But regardless here, Blake, it's basically down to among the top runners now. If you're up front, as long as you don't get involved in contact, you likely finish up front. You're picked to win this one, with a 2-lap shootout to decide it.
You know what? I kind of like what I've seen out of Zach Campbell. I'm going to say that he finds a way through all of these restarts and is able to find a way to make it work there, to keep it side by side, and that's at least my pick. I'm going to go with Zach Campbell.
2 laps led for him so far. Nicholas Doucette's led 1 under green, 4 total, now up to 5. Those are the front row drivers, with Doucette the leader, Campbell 2nd, Solis Jr., who's led 26 of the 52s in 3rd. He, right now, is clinched the most laps led, so that's an extra 5 bonus points. Then it's Mauricio, who's been in the conversation of the top 5 all day, in 4th. Christian Budd, who led 18 laps, is in 5th. Collinix is in 6th spot. Then it's Holzer, Roberts, Lindsay, Pellig. On his 2 tires, on the cusp of the top 10, right behind Michael Stroll for the restart. Among the other drivers who have gotten bonus points for this race, there is the 20, as we mentioned, with Salvez, who has had some struggles. And that's it. leaders in this race, but plenty of lead changes, especially in the closing stages tonight. 2 laps to decide it from Las Vegas Motor Speedway in WINSTEL Gen 4 Challenge action. Who will win the 2006 edition of the UAW Daimler Chrysler 400? We're about to find out. Jeff Gordon inside. Jamie McMurray, or rather Jeremy Mayfield, on the outside. Doucette versus Campbell in the front row. Green flag is out, 2 to go.
Green flag brings out the caution, so you can't get a huge run if you're Zach Campbell. You also got to protect the bottom. Don't give Solis Jr. an opportunity to go on by. And if you're Campbell, you got to pinch here late in the going as they exit 1 and 2. Campbell still hanging tough on the high side, but obviously doesn't have the help. Let's see if Solis tries to shoot the gap.
He thought about it. A block from Nicholas Doucette. A second block to the bottom. Campbell pinches from the outside. Wheel to wheel, coming to the white flag, this time by. Solis Jr. hits the apron. Bud takes him 3 wide. Campbell squeezes Doucette as they take the white.
And this is all going to come down to, if you're Zach Campbell, how much can you keep that 24 pinched on the bottom? Don't give him a good exit at all. He was loose there in 3 and 4, and that's exactly what he needed to do. Pinch him down, get the run off of 1 and 2, and he's got him clear on the backstretch.
Who will get it out of turn 4, though, is the question. Campbell, single file. He's been trying to position himself for this moment, for this run, all race long. And now off of turn 4, Zach Campbell will celebrate. He wins it off Las Vegas over Nicholas Doucette and Gabriel Mauricio. Colonix rounds of the top 4 and the massive one at the start and finish line behind him.
That started off at turn 4, a huge wreck that started there in the back of the pack with Brandon McKissick.
A whole hornet's nest of drivers stacked up, but it's Zach Campbell who takes the W today by more than a tenth of a second. A little bit of redemption from how close it got to win at Daytona, Blake, for him after being dominant there at times. He'll get the chance to burn it down now.
Well, and I'm glad he kind of pulled through. Again, I picked him there, which I was certain was the kiss of death for Zach Campbell there, but he did exactly what he needed to do. Doucette, so worried about the move that Jose Solis Jr. was potentially going to pull, was trying to throw blocks and just wasn't able to get a good entry into the corners. It was really slick down there in the bottom. So on that short run, Campbell did exactly what he needed to do to defend that track position, run the middle, not get loose, and hold on for the win.
So Zach Campbell gets the chance to burn it down, his first victory of the season, in a car that had its struggles for much of 2006. Here's the reason for the massive one. This was around 13th on back. Right there, the battle for 10th.
And it looked like getting loose there on the bottom, and everybody's not lifting here at the end, especially, again, no consequences here in iRacing, unlike real life. If you hit somebody or pile into a wreck, you're just trying to get to the start-finish line. But it really changed the running order from about 15th on back. That was a huge accident, and there were a lot of drivers that it kind of escaped through that and gained about 10 positions. And, of course, you have several who are up there at the front, and unfortunately, they're going to end up with some pretty bad finishes tonight.
Keep in mind the race results unofficial. The results will be reviewed from those involved in the incident. Zach Campbell takes the victory. He led 4 laps tonight. Nicholas Doucette finished in second, with Mauricio, Colonix, and Solis Jr. the top 5. Christian Budd moved up to 6th, nearly finished in the same spot, if not did, to Matt Kenseth in real life in this one in 6th. Dylan Roberts in 7th. Marcus Lindsay in 8th. James Holzer in 9th. The strategy helped him get there. And Ryan Doucette, who elected to pit after that 9-lap run late in the going, rounded out the top 10. A decent recovery from that call, Blake.
Certainly so. Tyler Head finishes in 11th. Thomas Lewandowski didn't really get to mention his name all night. He finishes in the 12th position. Ali Osman in 13th. Triffin Davis in 14th. 15th to Nick Turbeck. 16th to Logan Kress. Sean M. Butler got tagged, but passed a lot of cars there to finish 17th in that wreck. John Schwartz in 18th. Timothy Latham in 19th. And Brendan McGee rounds out your top 20.
21st spot went to Krista Ryan, who was involved around that incident and involved in the drivers having to scatter. Then it was Sean Pellick, who was in a decent spot for at least a top 20, And then the fourth turn happened. Then Casey Carrington, Brandon Monsalves finished in 24th from 40th qualifying position. Emily Howe finished 25th. Justin Rowden really struggled around the top line, hit the wall several times. 26 is where it ends up for him. Philip Snipes 27th. Alex Bates, Alan Ballacino, Jeffrey McClintock round out the top 30.
31st goes to Larry Pace. He had a night that would be tough to write home about. 32nd to Brandon McKissick after getting turned there late in the going. Anthony Krobeck in 33rd. Wesley Burchett 34th. Parker Alexander 35th. Michael Stroll in 36th. Hayden Repus in 37th. Ken Huff 38th. Trey Ryan 39th. First car scored one lap down, and Christopher Tate in 40th. Andy Trupiano 41st, 42nd, Juan Jimenez, and Aaron Smith early exit for him tonight, the 00 machine in 43rd.
That's a look top to bottom at the unofficial race results for tonight here from Las Vegas. But only one driver could come away with the checker flag tonight. It was Zach Campbell. And Zach, you had to work for this one. It took to the green-white checker to be able to get the run you needed to take the race victory from the outside. How does it feel to be a WINSTEL winner?
Feels nice. That was a hell of a race with Nick and Jose and Christian, all them, and I mean the set was super loose, and you really had to work for this one, and it was a blast racing those guys, even on the long runs and stuff. I mean, it was so much fun. You can pinch them tight, you can run them real hard, and these guys always race with respect. So that one was a lot of work. So it was such a blast to run.
Talk us through trying to set up that situation, because you tried a couple different ways to become the race leader and be able to control the tempo. You tried the two-tire strategy. Almost worked, and then you slid back once we got about 8-9 laps into the green flag run. You tried the inside. Didn't work early. Then the outside worked out. Talk us through that progression of trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to become the leader at Las Vegas?
Yeah, I mean, I was just seeing if two tires would work for the track position and just how much dirty air mattered there. And, it didn't matter a whole lot because, as soon as, we hit a cliff at like lap 7 and the tires started to burn off, which was probably a bit on my right foot. But, I actually wanted the bottom there on the last restart, and Nick kind of took it away from me. And I wanted the bottom because we had the green-white checker middle back. We had that last caution with 2 to go in the regular time. And I wanted the bottom on that restart. So when he gave me the top, I was kind of dreading it. But it was something that I tried trying to get through the field early because we obviously didn't start too far up front. And really just figured out how I could pinch guys down to the bottom, really keep the right side tires on that seam, straddle it a little bit, really get on it, and really give that guy on the bottom no room for when he gets back to the throttle and he has to really catch it. He needs to be more cautious. So it was a lot of figuring out just how much I could pinch, how much I could trust guys. And it was so much fun to go run that hard with those guys.
Next up is Atlanta, and this technically is a two-parter because, one, how are you looking forward to that race for WINSTEL? 2, how prepared are you for the Coke Series run, because you do work in that series too?
I can say that I've not paid too much attention to Coke this week. It's been a lot of practice for actually the next Porsche Taycan Esports Super Cup round at Silverstone. That's been a big grind for me. So I'm going to probably catch up with my driver, Mitchell DeYoung, tomorrow night and really look for what he's doing in A Open, how he's handling it, and what I need to do to really help him out and help us get our first win of the year on Tuesday. And I'm really looking forward to using that to go hopefully win another WINSTEL race. I know Atlanta's not always been the best track for me. I tend to struggle at tracks with really high tire wear and really having to be real precise with the car because I don't tend to do that too well in these stock cars. But it's something where I'm looking forward to it because this league is a lot different than anything else I've driven before. So maybe we can go for a little change of fate there.
Congratulations once again on the victory tonight, Zach, in the number 19.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's a great feeling.
Zach Campbell comes away with the victory tonight at Las Vegas in the WINSTEL Gen 4 Challenge to take home the victory in the UAW Daimler Chrysler 400. Second spot went to Nicholas Doucette. He's with Blake.
Nicholas Doucette, a name we're getting awfully familiar with up here in the booth talking to after these races, and it's for good reason. Nick, you had another opportunity to get you another win, but just, I don't know, the way things shaked out there just didn't quite pan out the way you needed to there at the end.
No, they didn't. But I really can't complain about that. That was another great race put on by WINSTEL and all of us drivers. I wasn't too sure how the new rule with the no fast repair was gonna work. I was kind of afraid I would need it tonight, but I didn't. So that's always a good thing. I might have another opinion on that though when I do need it. It seemed to have worked. The racing was a lot better. We seem to have gotten a couple of good runs throughout this race. But yeah, no, that final restart, I really didn't want that caution to come out. I just got in the lead and I thought I was going to be able to run away with it, but no, the caution came out and I really was debating on what lane I wanted to take for that restart because I knew I could hold it on the top, but I just for some reason my gut was telling me take the bottom again. But nope, that was another great race and a great battle.
It certainly was, and as we continue to just see you run up front here, what is it about these cars that you seem to really take a liking to?
You know, I wish I could tell you, but I really don't know. Back when WINSTEL first started, about just over 5 years ago, coming up on 6 years, the league initially started with these ARCA cars, and it was I don't know what it was. I just loved racing these, and it was a lot of fun back then, and it was great to be able to have another battle with Zach. Zach and I had some great battles back a couple in the past years when we were in these cars, so it's great to have him back with us and have some more just some great clean racing between the two of us.
Certainly was. Well, Nick, any final words before we let you go?
Yeah, I'll once again I'll thank WINSTEL for putting on another great event. What's this, like the third race, and they've all been a blast. I wish I could have spoke with you guys last week, but my tires just didn't want to hang on for 2 more laps last week at Fontana. But thankfully they did again this week. So you know what, it was a great race, and thanks for you guys for putting on another great show.
Well, Nick, you've been putting on some good shows recently, and I'm sure it won't be too long before we're talking to you again. So congrats on finishing second tonight.
Thank you.
Nicholas Doucette wraps it up in second, and Justin, I believe you've caught up with Gabriel, who brought it home in third, but he's nowhere to be found.
Nope, I was starting to see him approach, then unfortunately he was surrounded by everything, including some cell phones. It's a busy time. It's 2006. A lot can happen. Anywho, I'd like to thank Zach Campbell and Nicholas Doucette for being able to dodge the crowd of cell phones that came out of one of the garage area stalls to take the time to speak with us for today's post-race interview coverage. Your thoughts on the race?
It's what we've come to expect. I think we've seen a lot of great racing up at the front of the field. Aggression is always there because, again, there's so little time to try to make things happen. I like the change with the no fast repairs. I think drivers are a little bit smarter, and I think we see that even if you are tagged in a wreck, you tend not to be too hurt by the damage that you may incur, aside from a couple of examples. So I think it was a good change, and I think it put on a good race, and I like this series. I can't wait till we come back again in a week.
With that, we'd like to take the time to thank everyone for tuning in for tonight's coverage here from iRacing's virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway for the 2006 running of the UAW Daimler Chrysler 400. The next time out, the drivers will be hitting the racetrack as discussed. We'll head over to Atlanta. It's the Golden Corral 500. And keep in mind, that track is not just one sponsored by a very solid restaurant. It's one that sees lots of slick racing and lots of slippy sliding. It will not be easy. Who will be able to conquer the racetrack? We'll find out that answer next week on March 20th. With that, I'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's coverage for my producer and our producer, Zach Johnson, as well as for my co-announcer tonight, Blake McCandless. I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening. You've been watching FDFGG. Congratulations to your race winner, Zach Campbell. He's your winner from Las Vegas.